Tonight's episode of America's Hometown Horror is brought to you by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today if you're a podcast to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's one of the best things I like about Podgo for us is that it actually analyzes how many listeners we have and gives us advertisers that are tailored to us. And you can find them at podgo.co. That's podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast, America's Hometown Horror, in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. Again, that's podgo.co, podgo.co. And be sure to mention that you heard from your friends at America's Hometown Horror so that everyone knows where you found it. Podgo.co. And away we go, folks. It's another episode of America's Hometown Horror, and I would like to welcome you to the first episode of April, which means we are halfway to Halloween.
Wow.
Can you guys fucking believe that?
That's insane.
I know, right?
Time flies.
I know.
It?
Where did this first quarter of or quarter plus of the year go? Insane,
like every
right?
day goes by fast than the last.
Ugh, yeah, but it is halfway to Halloween, and we are going to bring you some very special stuff this month, which we'll talk about shortly. But again, my name's Mike. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of America's Hometown Horror. And as always, I am not by myself here. I'm joined by my esteemed co-hosts, Andrew and Kat. What is going on, you two?
Not much. What's going on with you?
Not a whole lot.
Nothing new. Same old. Just,
Keep
working
on keeping on.
Podcasting.
Just living that podcast life, that America's Hometown Horror life, my friends.
Nothing better.
Yeah.
Watching the Red Sox smell.
Yeah, I know,
good.
right? Yeah, they're, the object of the game is to score runs, and the Red Sox, I think they're trying to not score runs actively, which, whatever. We're not a sports podcast. We're, in fact, a horror podcast, and we're here to talk about a pretty interesting topic tonight, which I think will cover a lot of different movies, TV shows, maybe some other fun things. Who knows? I don't know. I can't predict the future, but I guess we'll see what happens. But
oh, you know.
I mean, I know to a certain extent, but
yeah.
But yeah, so as I mentioned before, we are in April, which a lot of companies, including Shudder, are calling halfway to Halloween. We're going to do the same thing, call it halfway to Halloween. We have some special stuff coming up this month. As I mentioned last week, we are the exclusive podcast partner of Spooky World, the movie. We have some more news from them this week, so stay tuned if you're interested in hearing about that. But I also can announce at this point that we are lucky enough to have a guest named Amanda from a website called Spook Eats on our show on April 21st, I believe it's going to be. Not sure if it's going to be live yet or if it's going to be posted that week, but Amanda runs a fantastic blog. She's based in Buffalo, New York, and she's promoting a book. I think she's written 5 books now, which, congratulations, good to her. But she does a food, travel, and paranormal blog, which is awesome, and I would highly recommend you check it out. On Twitter, Instagram, Spook Eats, and I believe it's also spookeats.com, and she'll be a guest on our show.
Looking forward to it.
Totally.
We all love food, we all love travel, we all love paranormal stuff. Sounds like a guest that's right up our alley.
Horror,
Yes.
so.
Yeah, and I know
It's nice to have another lady that's interested in the same things.
Absolutely, and I know she's excited for that as well, to come on and talk with you. And I know that, based on her website, from what I've seen, she's been to some pretty famous paranormal locations, including the Stanley Hotel.
Oh, nice.
Which is where The Shining was originally inspired by, and lots of other stuff. So we're excited to have Amanda on the show in a couple of weeks. And also we're going to have our interview with the producer, director, and original owner of Spooky World on April 25th. So good stuff coming up this month for us. A very exciting month. A very exciting halfway to Halloween month, right? I think
halfway
we got
there,
some
baby.
good stuff. Some good
It's
stuff.
going to be a better Halloween this year, too,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, with that being said, let's just go into our usual routine here. So, I know Kat and I have watched a couple of things over the last week since we recorded, some spooky things. Andrew, you have anything you wanted to
I have
report
not watched
back on?
a
Anything
damn
recommended?
thing yet.
No, I know. It's been busy with
I've
work.
been meaning to watch. I need to watch Kong vs. Godzilla.
I do, too. I haven't had a chance to watch that.
I've heard pretty good things.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. And, so full disclosure, Andrew and I are now working at the same place. So, our schedules are exactly the same, and our free time is nowhere near as frequent as it had been over the last couple of months as things are ramping up at our old friends at Shine Through Window Cleaning, first original sponsor of the show. So
yeah,
yes.
But
respect.
Yeah. But yeah, we watched a couple things. Kat, do you want to talk about the movie we watched last night? Unless you're going to go into more detail about it later.
I mean, we can talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. So Mike's always wanted to watch ParaNorman.
Yes, I have. That is correct.
Andrew, have you ever seen that?
I have not seen ParaNorman. That's the Pixar,
So it's actually not Pixar. It's made by a company named Leica, and they've done several other... And it's a different style of animation from Pixar. It's like almost like a stop motion, and I guess
I was going to say, it's kind of like a claymation almost. Yeah, but it's like a modern-day claymation.
So I did the thing that I do when I'm watching a movie, and I was reading about it while I was watching it. Not spoiling it for myself, obviously, but apparently this was one of the first movies to use like a 3D printer for a lot of their characters and stuff. So I'm sorry. I know I tend to dominate conversation. No. Go ahead. Talk about ParaNorman.
No, and actually, it reminded me of a little bit like Wallace and Gromit.
I love Wallace and Gromit. I love the animation in that. So, that's like claymation, I think.
Right, yeah. It's like, it kind of had that feel to it, but like a modern day. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was good. I kind of went into it thinking it was more of a kid's movie. Like, it kind of is geared for a kid's movie, but it's got a few jabs that I would be like... Yeah.
It's a pretty dark movie. Pretty dark subject matter. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there was some things in it that I was like, ooh, like... I wouldn't have like a child watch this, but I would have maybe like a preteen. I think
it was rated PG, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm not sure.
It probably is because there's not a lot of language or anything. Like, I mean, there's not really. They kind of dodged a lot of those bullets.
Yep.
Well, that's like most Pixar movies. Like, unless you're an adult, you don't pick up on those things
for
the most part.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of movies that you watch now that you watched when you were younger, and you're like, oh, you pick up on the jokes.
Yeah, exactly.
Little dirty jokes that are in there.
Yeah. But I said to him, we were talking about it, like, what should we watch tonight? I was like, hey, why don't we throw on ParaNorman? And that was actually one of the movies that came across the New England horror movie theme, because it's based in...
That's correct.
I think it's a fictional town in Massachusetts.
Yeah, it is. So it's based in a town called Blythe Hollow, Massachusetts, which is clearly an amalgamation of... Salem and Plymouth, I would think.
Yeah, because they kind of referenced a few different Massachusetts towns, but they were definitely in a fictional
I would say
town.
More so Salem, because they're talking about the whole plot of the story is based around like this witch's curse, and the whole town kind of celebrates this witch's curse as like a tourist industry type thing, which Salem obviously does.
Yeah. But they also had like a little bit of references to Plymouth in it, which is kind of cool.
What
they
references?
had like they were doing a play, and there were pilgrims and there were Indians.
They mentioned the Mayflower by name.
Native Americans, I should say.
Yep.
So they had some Plymouth references. I was like, wait a minute, does this place take place in Plymouth and we never knew about it? Mm-hmm. But no, it doesn't. But it has some
Not this
feel.
time.
Not this time.
Not this time.
Not this time. But I liked it. You liked it?
Yeah, I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
It was good.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, check it out. It's a nice little lighthearted.
It's cool. If you're looking for something, it's on Netflix.
Yeah, I thought I was scrolling through and saw it.
Came out in 2012 and actually was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, but it lost to Brave, which is a Pixar movie.
Brave is really
Or actually,
good.
that might not even be Pixar. That might be a Disney movie. I don't know.
It's
made by the
DreamWorks.
same company.
It is.
No, Brave is not DreamWorks. It's made by Disney.
Oh,
you know what? You know why I remember that?
She's a princess. Yeah.
She's a princess that appeared in Wreck-It Ralph too.
Yep.
Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Yeah.
I remember that. So,
yep.
But actually, really good voice cast in this too. So the main kid is played by Norman. ParaNorman is played by Cody Smith-McPhee, who I know he's been in a bunch of stuff, but I know him. He plays Nightcrawler in the newer X-Men movies. But Anna Kendrick's in it. Casey Affleck, John Goodman. Jeff Garlin.
I thought that was John Goodman.
Yeah, John Goodman is the crazy uncle.
Yeah.
Jeff Garlin is the dad. Leslie Mann plays the mother. Who else? Christopher Mintz-Plasse, who is McLovin, plays like the town bully. So there's like a lot of good people in this movie. It's actually pretty cool.
He kept saying, he's like, why do I know that voice? And it's so hard because he doesn't look anything like McLovin.
You know who else I found out too? So a woman named Alex Borstein, who plays Lois Griffin in Family Guy.
Yeah.
She was the play teacher.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, the teacher that's like directing the play.
She's also on
So
Mad
in that.
TV, right?
That's correct.
That's where
She was
she
in
started,
Mad TV.
isn't
Yeah,
it?
Alex
On Mad
Borstein.
TV?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. Mad TV.
Is she? No, she
It's a
isn't.
throwback.
Is she? Oh, Miss.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
I know
she
what you're
is.
talking about. Yes, that's
Yeah,
her, that's her
that
as
is
well.
her.
No, I don't think she'd get away with that anymore in 2021
I'm
for
like,
sure.
wait, what?
Yeah, she did that. That's for sure.
I like how you knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have to say it.
So I'd say ParaNorman, pretty good animated film that you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have younger kids, maybe not, but
Right.
you have kids that are like
Would you put it? What other horror type Pixar movies would you put it up there with?
Well, I mean, any sort of animated. I mean, if you were to not say Pixar, but animated,
Animated.
it's like Nightmare Before Christmas.
That's what I was thinking.
How
Yeah.
close?
Darker
it's-
subject matter for sure.
Yeah,
That's good. That's
yeah,
cool.
it was a little bit more on the scary side because they had the Christmas vibe with the nightmares, and it kind of blended into this happy movie. It ends on a happy note. Well, I mean,
It does,
obviously,
yeah.
I'm going to give it away, but it's
Well, that's not giving it away. It's Pixar.
it's
It should have somewhat of a happy
it should
note.
have a happy
Shouldn't
ending.
end
So
real.
yeah.
It can start
No.
off sad and depressing.
Yeah, I'd probably say it's kind of like that. if
All
anything.
right, cool.
Yeah, for
I'll
sure.
have to check
It
it
has
out
that
then.
kind of feel.
Yeah, so I'd recommend it. I'd recommend checking out ParaNorman if you haven't seen it yet. Again, it's 9 years old, so
Yeah.
you should check it out if you haven't seen it. It's on Netflix right now.
Like
so,
the 3D
hey, why not?
animation printer, whatever technology they used, was actually pretty cool.
The animation
Yeah.
is phenomenal. I think that was probably one of the coolest parts about it was the animation.
Yeah.
As Kat slams her coaster down on the
Sorry.
table. It's okay.
Sorry.
Not your fault. It's okay. But yeah, cool movie, worth checking out. It's like the animation was actually beautiful.
Yeah.
Right. So really cool. We also had a chance to check out the first episode of season 2 of the Creepshow TV series on Shudder last night, Andrew.
Oh, what do you think?
It was pretty cool. I'll let you start off with this one. What do you think of it?
So all these the Creepshow. Have you seen a lot of the Creepshow things?
The originals, not all the new ones, though. No,
They're kind of like corny,
obviously,
and they
That's
kind
the
of go back
point.
to like a comic booky kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's
And-
the whole point of the Creepshow.
and they're
that's
also
why
like
it makes it good,
right, and they're also kind of like way over the top.
Yeah.
as they should be.
Which I actually like. Can I talk about like spoilers of this?
Yeah,
or no?
sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
So like, it's this kid who. Are you sure I can talk spoilers?
Well, you're spoiling it for me, but that's
Should I not? I won't talk spoilers.
I wouldn't
Never
talk
mind.
spoilers if
Let's
Andrew's
not.
going to watch it,
Okay.
because I would
Never
recommend
mind.
you watch this episode. It's good. It's
Okay.
very good.
So. It
What
was
do you
really
think about
good.
it? Okay, fair enough. So basically, if I had to break down there's two segments in the first episode for you, okay? Both of them are directed by Greg Nicotero,
Right.
who is the mind behind the special effects in The Walking Dead, and he's the showrunner for this version of Creepshow.
Yeah.
So if you've watched any of the first season, or if you watched the Christmas special that you loved,
You
Catherine,
kind of watched the Christmas special.
you kind of watched it. I don't know if you remember it, but
vaguely.
so he directed this first episode, and the first one is almost kind of like a throwback to like the original first segment of Creepshow, the movie, with the kid with the dad played by Tom Atkins, who's a dick that hates horror and hates that the kid
Yep.
is reading horror comics and stuff. It was actually kind of like an expansion on that story a bit, but this
I
kid
kind of related like way too much.
a
To
little.
that
Well,
even-
actually, yeah,
that even
this and that and
is
Paranormal.
that
are
even
kinda
a
similar.
story in that? Isn't that just like the
It's like the
lead-in?
wraparound. It's like the
Yeah,
wraparound
but it's-
story,
that's-
but
yeah,
they,
so that's
they
not like
essentially
an
turned it
actual-
into a story with this kid that
Oh,
like
that's kinda cool.
He's obsessed with old school like Universal horror movies and all the Universal classic monsters, so like Dracula, Gilman, the Mummy, Frankenstein. And it's essentially a situation where his mom passes away and he has to live with his aunt and his total asshole uncle, who is played by Matt Dillon's brother Kevin, who played Johnny Drama and
In Entourage.
Entourage, which is a show
Just
that I
got douche
hate.
chills.
Yeah, I hate
Well,
that show.
he plays a douche.
He
in
plays a
this
douche
thing,
in this
yeah,
show,
so
and he's
he
very
actually
good at
fits
doing
pretty
it.
well.
But that's a good first segment. And the second one actually is it takes place in the 70s, and I mean, if I could describe this in a sentence, it is essentially Bob Ross, a version of Bob Ross, versus the Deadites from Evil Dead. Somebody goes on to PBS, the PBS affiliate in Pittsburgh, and reads from the Necronomicon. Did I pronounce that right? Whatever.
Sounds right.
And people start turning into monsters from the Evil Dead, the Deadites.
That's cool.
And they start attacking people at the PBS station, and one of these people that's fighting back is a Bob Ross ripoff. And if you know anything about Bob Ross and his show, he actually, like, as soft-spoken and calm as he is, he was actually, like, in Vietnam, total badass, like, saw combat,
Yeah.
like, total fucking lunatic. And it's basically Bob Ross and two other people fighting all these Deadites in the PBS studio,
That's
and it
pretty
was a
awesome.
really cool concept. I liked it a lot.
It's a
And
great
actually,
concept.
so Sam Raimi's brother Ted Raimi, is actually in this segment playing the person that has the Necronomicon and is reading from it. So
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
It was
Sounds
cool.
interesting.
It's a good episode.
That's a great concept for...
yeah, later on, if you're looking for an hour of your time to kill, I'd recommend checking out Creepshow. Because I like the show. It's very, like Kat said, it's very campy. It's very comic booky. But again, that's the point of Creepshow. We did an episode on Creepshow way back in the day. If you haven't listened, go back and listen. But this kind of continues the legacy of Creepshow, and I thought it was pretty goddamn good. Yeah, I'm excited to see what the new season has to do, because I think it's clear they have a bigger budget with this season than they did last time around.
Yeah.
It's they definitely do. No doubt about it. Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would check it out.
Absolutely.
Those both sound like very good.
Check
Check it out. What's it all about? Beastie Boys?
Yeah.
I was
Hey,
thinking
Beastie Boys.
check it out with Steve Rule.
Check
Check it out with Steve Roll, or check it out with John Mellencamp.
Yeah.
Kat's new favorite artist. Kat is now like it's like you've actually just found out that John Mellencamp was alive, and now you're listening to all of his music on repeat.
I'm
It's
just
like
on a
so
John.
annoying. It's
I
so
can't
annoying.
stand
Oh
John
my god, it's
Mellencamp.
so annoying.
Like,
So
there's
annoying.
nobody worse.
What's the song that you continue to play on repeat?
Cherry Bomb.
Cherry Bomb. If I hear Cherry Bomb by John Mellencamp one more time, I'm gonna blow my
That's when the
brains out.
smoke was a smoke.
And grooving was grooving.
Yeah.
Dancing was
Yeah.
everything.
Here we go. We got
We
John
were
Mellencamp in
young
the
and we
basement.
were improving. Is that
Wow, listen to you guys.
The song's terrible.
Oh.
Well, hey,
It's like burned in my brain.
so I mentioned for our halfway to Halloween celebration here in April, we're going to have on Amanda from Spook Eats on in a couple of weeks. But as we mentioned last episode, we are going to have the team from Spooky World the movie on April 25th. First and foremost, a huge thank you to Tony Landry from the Spooky 101 podcast. He's the producer of Spooky World the movie. He gave us an awesome shout out on the last episode they had last week with Mike Marin.
Yes, that
who
was
used
so
to be
cool.
a radio host in the Boston area, out in Worcester, actually, excuse me. And so what I've been told from the Spooky World team is that not only are they teaming with extensively, not only are they teaming with the original owner of the park, David Bernalito, who actually will be on our show on April 25th, and regarding Spooky World and its place in the haunt industry, but not also pop culture as well. So basically like where Spooky World falls in the whole pop culture pantheon, right? They have also branched off of this, and they're interviewing the Mount Rushmore of the haunt industry who have turned their attractions from backyard haunts into the multi-million-dollar industry that it's become today. So there are going to be a lot of cool voices on this documentary. Safe to say, the blowing up of the haunt industry would not have happened without Spooky World. So, again, we are very excited to partner with Spooky World, the movie, and we appreciate all the information that they continue to give us, and we cannot wait to interview them at the end of this month. And not only that, but see the movie this October.
Oh,
when
absolutely.
It comes out.
Yeah.
So thanks again to Spooky World, the movie, for giving us all kinds of good information about their movie, which we are super excited to see.
Super.
So a couple of other small pieces of news. Again, light news week this week, which you'll be excited about. But
Wahoo!
I did find a piece of news, Catherine, that I thought would interest both me and you.
Okay.
Wanna hear
News
what
away,
You want
yeah.
to hear what it is?
Go ahead.
So, it's no secret that I am a gigantic Batman fan.
Oh, gigantic.
And
Okay.
a lot of Batman stuff kind of crosses into the realm or kind of treads the line of horror. And one of my favorite Batman graphic novels of all time is a story that came out in the 90s. It's called Batman The Long Halloween. Okay? I'm assuming neither of you have heard of this before.
No.
Okay. So basically, this story deals with Batman hunting down a serial killer that is murdering members of Gotham's crime families.
Wow.
Okay. So there's a serial killer that is killing people that are members of the Maroni, Falcone crime families and a bunch of others. And it involves a lot of Batman's classic villains. So it tells one of the origins of Two-Face, but also has the Joker, Mad Hatter, Solomon Grundy, Catwoman, Poison Ivy, Murderer's Row of Batman villains, right? The interesting part about this, and why I thought it would interest you, Catherine, is that the person playing Batman in this animated movie is Jensen Ackles. Do you know who that is?
No.
That name sounds so familiar.
It should ring a bell to you. He is one of the two brothers in Supernatural.
He's also been in a bunch of other
Wait,
shows
is he
then.
Dean or
I don't know.
Oh.
You tell me. He's the one, not the one with the long hair. He's the one with the shorter hair.
Oh, it was Dean. Yeah.
Let me see who it is.
Dean
I
from
see a
Supernatural.
He looks like somebody that could play Batman. He looks the part.
Oh,
for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
He's awesome. I
Yeah.
loved him.
So he's providing the voice of Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Nice.
Also in this animated movie, Josh Duhamel, or Duhamel, however you pronounce
Duhamel.
it. Duhamel. So he was
Dumas.
married. Probably he was married to Fergie for a bit in time. He's
Fergie
playing
Ferg.
Harvey Dent in Two-Face in this movie.
Oh.
And also a thing that would interest you, kind of on a more somber note.
Oh, I was going to say, is it Colin Farrell? But
No,
it's
the person
not
playing Catwoman in this movie, the woman playing Catwoman in this movie is Naya Rivera, who was in Glee and passed away last July. And I guess apparently
that's
this
so
is one of her
sad.
the last projects that she worked on before she passed away. So
that's
she's
awful.
playing Catwoman in this as
Yeah.
well. So maybe I can get you to watch a Batman animated movie based on
absolutely.
these
I'll
things.
watch that. Yeah.
Yeah, so Batman the Long Halloween Part 1 is coming out later this year.
Oh, that was so sad. That whole story with her and the...
Yeah. So, and just to give you an idea, Andrew, so parts of Batman the Long Halloween
Are that from
were drawn
Batman,
from
the laughing joke or the what is that?
The Killing Joke.
The Killing Joke.
The Killing Joke.
The laughing joke.
Okay.
Idiot.
So The Dark Knight, parts of Batman the Killing Joke were taken for the Joker, and parts of Batman the Long Halloween were taken for the Harvey Dent Two-Face origin story.
That makes sense.
So, like The Dark Knight with Aaron Eckhart, you can expect to see a similar type of thing with Harvey Dent in Batman the Long Halloween. So Christopher Nolan drew from that when he was doing The Dark Knight.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I knew one comic book.
Yeah.
Well, that might
Pretty
actually be
impressive.
the most excited I've been since The Joker came out.
I know,
Not
right?
The Joker, sorry, The Dark Knight.
And then a piece of news that nobody's excited about, but I feel like it should be mentioned. The quote-unquote final season of The Walking Dead is set to premiere this August.
Wow, so I guess we actually have to finish it.
Well, again, it's not the last season because they've already told you that they're doing a Daryl and Carol spin-off show.
Okay, that's
after
a spin-off
this.
show, though. Like, this has to just end. Like,
It's just so... Like,
I
How should it end with the
I'm
zombies
so,
taking over and winning?
Like,
I think that's
who
how it should
like
end.
if you're like, who are you if you're still watching The Walking Dead? Who are you listening to this show? Who are you? I want to know who you are.
and why are you
Let us
still
know.
watching
Why are
it?
you still
Because
watching
it's-
In what world could this end? There's like no government left, right? There's no military.
Well,
Is that
some
the
of the
idea?
main, most of
I have
the
Well,
no
there's
idea.
aspects
most
of it
the
where
main
there's like a new,
characters-
like essentially not like the exact title, but there's like a new world order where people have kind of created their own quasi mini government. And
Everything's
like,
a new world order.
that kind of stuff is happening in the final seasons. But like who is
No, but,
still interested
like,
in this?
Yeah, but how are you
reason-
fighting off zombies to that effect? Like, I feel like the zombies should eventually win in this scenario. I don't know the show enough, but I know if the guy from Boondock Saints is fighting zombies, eventually he's going to die.
He's the only character that I actually love is Daryl. And actually, I kind of grew to like Negan quite a bit. And Rick was awesome, but Rick hasn't been in the show in like 4
Well, and
seasons.
that's the problem is that they start out with this like really strong cast, and then they just killed them off one by one, or they left the show or whatever,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're
No,
left
well,
with like
what happened is that AMC saw that the show was going to be a cash cow, and they said, how long can we fuck this cash cow? And then we can milk it dry, which is essentially what they've done. Now there's like 3 different Walking Dead shows. They're coming out with 3 more.
Is there one called The Talking Dead? Because they should.
There is a show called The Talking Dead.
it's the
Did
after
you not know
the
that?
Walking Dead show.
I thought it was there was The Walking Dead, and then what was the one after that?
The Talking
Talking
Dead,
Dead.
hosted by Chris Hardwick from Nerdist. That's The Talking Dead.
Yeah,
it's
and
a
they
talk
interview
show
the people from that
after
show.
the show of The
Oh,
Walking Dead, where they
I
have
had no idea about that. I just knew that there was Walking Dead, and then Fear the Walking Dead.
There's Walking
And
Dead,
then I
Fear
thought
the
I was
Walking
making
Dead.
up Talking Dead.
There's a new one that came out this year with like younger characters that grew up in the zombie apocalypse. I forget what it was actually called.
They should have one, The Stalking Dead, where it's just
The
a bunch
Stalking
of
Dead,
people
yeah.
stalking
Zombies
others.
stalking people,
And then the,
waiting to kill them.
Ugh, God, yeah. So I guess if you care about The Walking Dead,
The Yoking
That
Dead.
actually is a good. That's a good.
you'll be
concept.
you'll be sad to know
stupid
that
zombies
you know,
stalking people.
the final season of The Walking Dead, I think whatever season it is set to premiere in August. Even though it's not really going to be the end of The Walking Dead because there's going to be more. So yay, hooray to that!
Oh, yeah, whatever.
That's what I got for news, you guys.
Great.
Cool.
Let's
Ready to move on
move
to
on!
our
Ready to
tonight's
move on?
topic? We ready for
Always.
that?
Topic du jour.
Topic du jour, and what is that exactly?
That is the soup of the day.
Soup of the day, the topic of the day, right?
That sounds good.
Let's have that.
Portuguese
I think I'll
kale.
have that.
And tonight's topic, my friends, is the best New England-based horror movies, which is a topic that I've had written down for a little while that we are just now getting to. So I'm excited to talk about this.
And
So-
if you just heard that and you went, another list episode, Shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
We need a break every once
Deal
in a
with
while.
it. Deal with it. I feel like it's not a huge leap to associate a lot of horror stuff with New England in general, right? Some of the reasons being that some of the most famous horror authors to ever live, including H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe, and Stephen King, have all either lived here in New England or had stories that have taken place in this region, or both. It's the oldest region in the country, and I feel like lots of history equals lots of lore and legends, aka, the whole history of Salem, the witch trials, etc., which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about in some of Catherine's movies. Mm-hmm. I mean, is it because we have awesome leaves and foliage in the fall? I mean, I feel like that lends itself to a very nice Halloween setting. That might be something like that.
It's the fact that the weather sucks for 6 months out of the year. So you're constantly in a state of horror.
I feel like the cold definitely helps with that because, you
need that. Yeah. You need that time where you're just cooped up.
Yeah.
That's probably when they write their best stuff, when they're cooped up.
Think about a movie like The Witch, which we covered in a prior episode, right? Where you are essentially, it's kind of like this Norman Rockwell painting picturesque landscape with beautiful trees and beautiful foliage. But when it comes to be wintertime, it is unforgiving and freezing and very easy, especially in the settler times, to find yourself in big-time trouble, especially like in The Witch. So
it's
The Witch
beautiful until you have to live in it.
Yeah, of course. And, everybody, myself included, I've said numerous times, I mean, we're all in our 30s here. I do enjoy the changing of the seasons, but I can see, as you get older, how people might enjoy complete warmth throughout the entire year. So, other movies where I feel like New England Halloween is paramount are movies like ParaNorman, which we talked about already, or Hocus Pocus, which might come up later.
Yeah.
And hell, we even have some of the best haunted attractions in the country, including Spooky World, which we may or may not have talked about. I forget. Barrett's Haunted Mansion, Haunted Overlook, which is in New Hampshire, which is consistently ranked as one of the best haunted attractions in the country.
Overload, right?
Haunted Overlook.
Oh, I thought it was Overload.
Overload.
What's Haunted Overload?
Nope, you're correct. It's Haunted Overload. I apologize.
I thought that was a.
My notes
videos
were
cut.
incorrect. Haunted Overload, and also Fright Kingdom up in New Hampshire, which is the one that was used to film Hubie Halloween. That's where that was actually.
Yes,
filmed.
that was awesome.
But
can that count as well?
Yeah. So I mean, do you guys have any opinions or any thoughts as to why so much horror stuff is based in New England? Catherine, I'll start with you.
So I actually read. I shared with you guys that article that I found from Boston Magazine.
Yeah.
That was really cool. It kind of went into all the history that we have of different haunting kind of things. We had the witch trials. We had all the stuff you mentioned before.
Yeah.
That sets a nice tone in the fall. The leaves and everything are changing. It gets a little bit chillier. New England it's a time to tell horror stories and ghost stories around a fire. You know, you kind of have that kind of vibe in the fall with New England and stuff.
I feel like Halloween around here is a huge deal.
Oh, it's a holiday. I mean, people really celebrate Halloween. I mean, they do in different parts of the country too, but I think that we, especially having so much history in New England.
I also feel like you can't have Halloween when it's 80 degrees out and sunny. So if you're in the southern states,
you can.
That's why Louisiana is such a good setting for it.
Well, they
you
have
the
a lot
weeping
of
willows and all those.
But
It's just
also,
a very
they have a lot
old,
of history.
A lot of history.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with the Northeast.
Louisiana also has some of the best haunted attractions, especially in the New Orleans area in the country. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you look at New England.
Yeah.
It's the earliest colonization in America.
Well,
and
not
then
only
you have all the Indian wars that went on here, so you have all those bad spirits.
That also plays a big influence.
That has a huge influence.
A lot of the American Revolution took place here, so there's a lot of death, a lot of battles, a lot of people that died in anguish that may or may not have unfinished business, that type of stuff, right?
Exactly.
I mean, think about it. So, what do you in the Northeast, especially, right? So you have, I think, probably the two biggest Halloween towns in America are located in the Northeast. Salem, and probably Sleepy Hollow, New York, which is obviously famous for the legend of Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman.
Is New York technically in New England?
It's not.
You didn't say New England.
No, it's not New England. I said the Northeast.
Okay.
The Northeast.
Yes, the Northeast. Yeah. Correct.
So, Sleepy Hollow, I know from people that I went to college with that were from New York, Sleepy Hollow their celebration of Halloween is probably about as big, if not bigger, than Salem's because of George Washington Irving's story about Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman. So I would actually love to go there and celebrate Halloween.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
But, yeah, Salem's obviously like Salem is, Salem has their own horror film festival now, which is a huge thing, and there's a ton of stuff to do up there around Halloween. So Halloween in New England is a huge deal, which I feel like there's many, many factors. But yeah, Andrew, I mean, do you have anything else to say about that? Like why it's so big here?
I mean, I think we pretty much nailed all the reasons why. It's very conducive to. I feel like for some reason, like a good horror movie needs the changing of seasons and the changing of, like, I feel like that makes a big difference in the movie. Right. Whether if it's just set in one. I mean, I guess that doesn't matter.
I feel like a lot of horror movies are set in like fall
or
too,
winter, or there's like, changing of the season. Like summertime, it's too nice out. Like
except for Midsommar. That was a nice summer horror movie.
I mean, okay, sure fair enough. Fair enough. There's plenty of those, believe me. So okay, so I guess last question before we jump into our movies here. How did you guys qualify this category? Was there any particular thing that you took into account when selecting your movies? Like, for instance, like, did it have to be filmed here? Did it have to be based here? Did it have to just be based here? Do they have to have the over-the-top, horrible Hollywood versions of a Boston accent that are, Hollywood can never seem to get right? Like, what did you actually qualify as a New England horror movie?
For me, it was that they were filmed and based in New England. I mean, I kind of went for all or nothing.
Okay.
For the ones that I'll be talking about.
Fair enough. Andrew, what about you?
Just based. I mean, I basically went with
That's
New
what
England.
I went with, too.
Yeah, I was like, if it's based in New England, it counts. And also the other kind of requisite I went with was I didn't want it to be something that. Well, first off, they can't all be Stephen King, because it could all be Stephen King. If
we really could do an episode on
and
just
I just
Stephen
can't
King.
do that.
Yeah, I tried to not pick all Stephen King
here,
too, even though there's some on my list.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, no, because obviously there should be at least one on your list.
Right.
But I wasn't about to spout off three and be like...
For sure. Okay, fair enough. So with that all being said, why don't we just jump right in? And Andrew, I'll start with you. What's your first pick for your best New England-based horror movies, my friend?
I was looking at... I was doing some research, and I was looking up movies that were based in New England that were horror movies. And one of the movies that showed up, the name of the movie popped into my head immediately, and I was like, I know I've seen this movie. And then I started looking a little bit more into it, and I remember watching it. I've seen this movie maybe once, and it's so good, and it's so underrated that I want to watch it again, and it's In the Mouth of Madness.
Yep.
Mike's seen it. And you've seen it like once too, right?
Yeah, I saw it a long time ago.
So apparently it's the third movie in the trilogy that John Carpenter did with The Thing, Prince of
Darkness and Mouth of Madness.
And Mouth of Madness. Mm-hmm. So one thing this movie's got going for it is it's got Sam Neill in it, who's amazing in everything.
Dr. Alan Grant.
And and don't forget
from Event Horizon. Yeah.
So good in that movie.
He's the villain in Event Horizon.
In this movie.
Yeah.
And it's a Lovecraftian movie. So it was also directed by John Carpenter, which is good. That always helps. Yeah. And it's
great horror pedigree in this movie.
It's got that feel to it of a Lovecraftian movie where you've got the monsters and you've just got that, like, it's just so, like, his movies are so, every movie that's adapted that's based off of that is so weird.
Yeah.
And, like, they've got, like, so you got the monsters and they're called the Wall of Monsters, which is pretty cool. And they pretty much, so they're based off the great old ones, which you would probably know about. Yeah,
which includes, like,
Cthulhu.
Yeah, Cthulhu.
And Dagon.
Dagon.
But what I thought was interesting, because I was, like, looking into these monsters, and I was on some random site called fandom.com. That's probably not random. And it's...
random fandom?
We were talking about... So their homeworld, which I thought was interesting, this is the Wall of Monsters, is an alternate dimension. The name is, I guess, unknown, but it's presumably named The Void, which I thought was interesting because when we did The Void, we talked how much that movie was.
Week. Yeah, yep.
And then they also give like a list of abilities for these monsters, which I think is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I'm like, is this like a Pokemon card where you're just reading off their attributes and how many hit points you got?
Yep.
But so they're madness, induction, and corrupting influence.
Wow.
That's part of it. And then they also have, this is what I thought about The Void when I saw this. Ability to create prophetic scenario that is the end of humanity.
Wow.
Isn't that like a random?
Wow.
Like, who's like coming up with these names? Those are the greatest names for abilities that I've ever seen.
You know who's coming up with that
Yeah.
stuff is Howard Phillips Lovecraft. That's who's coming
Yeah.
up with that stuff. Yeah, and I feel like one of those things, like, if you're going to adapt a Lovecraftian movie, it almost has to take place in New England because kind of one of the intrinsic values of a Lovecraft story is that it's based in New England.
Oh, I
Right?
didn't bring that up. It's
Yeah.
based off of it's not a real town in New Hampshire
Mm-hmm.
that was supposedly created by these monsters that the author, Sutter Kane. So basically the author in this book, he's the writer that goes missing and Sam Neill has to find him and it's
Yep.
leads to that, which is a lot of what his books are, I feel like. Well, actually, no, they took a little bit of that from the show that I've seen like 2 episodes of, the one you guys finished.
Lovecraft Country.
Yeah. There's a little bit of that in there.
Yep.
So they basically relay their stories, these monsters, to this guy, and he writes about them.
Yeah.
And that's the guy that goes missing. So that was kind of cool, I thought, too.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
It's a very good... Like, I need to rewatch this movie, like, 3 times, because... First off, it's got Sam fucking Neill in it. Like,
Yeah.
does it get any better than that?
Good
Would
actor.
you watch that movie, Kat?
I would watch it. I like him. I like
Do you
Sam
like
Neill.
Lovecraftian?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I like that stuff.
Okay. All right, so what's that movie named again?
In the Mouth of Madness,
In the Mouth of Madness.
1994, John
Andrew's
Carpenter.
first pick, a John Carpenter film. Absolutely.
So I'm gonna do like a double dip, kind of a double
right.
dip or a half, 2 halves, I guess. Because I was gonna say Hocus Pocus, which is one of our most downloaded
You were
episodes.
going to say Hocus
Obviously,
Pocus?
yeah.
By the way, but we've already talked about that, so we don't need to go too far into that. But obviously, it was based in Salem, and it was filmed in Salem. And
Correct.
we went up to Salem one time, and this was before you actually saw Hocus Pocus.
No, I had seen it at that point, but
All right.
I just hadn't seen it as many times as you had.
Of course not, because I've watched it since I was like a little kid, and Sanderson Sisters on Halloween or whatever. That was like
Yes.
a big deal. So that was really fun to go up to Salem, and you can see Max's house, and you can see where the Sanderson Sisters' house is. You can see Allison's house. Like, it's really cool. You can do the whole town hall thing and kind of go around Salem and see all where they filmed it.
Allison, by the way, the actress that was in one of the actresses that was in The Hills Have Eyes,
Yes, I know.
which you haven't
We
listened to
talked
that
about
episode
that.
yet.
I know.
Then go back and see her.
So Hocus Pocus was kind of a half, and then the other half, which you guys are debating whether or not it's a horror movie, is The Crucible.
I'll allow it.
So The Crucible was filmed in 1996, and it was actually filmed in Hog Island, which is in Ipswich, and it was set in Salem. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, of course. During the Salem witch trials.
yes, and that has Winona Ryder is one of the main actresses in it, and there's a couple of other people that are in it that I kind of escaped. Like,
Yeah. What's his name? Isn't Daniel Day-Lewis in that?
Yes. Yep. He plays John Proctor. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was kind of I kind of always thought of that as, it's history, but it's also, I mean, it's definitely scarier than Hocus Pocus. It's kind of like it's not really it's kind of his historical film. Like, a lot of those people actually existed at one point. Mm-hmm. You can go to Salem and see their graves and stuff. So all that stuff actually, like, at the end, they even have, like, a little credit that says, like, this went on until 19 more people died because they pretty much said they weren't going to confess to witchcraft. And all these people were hanged. And, like, at the very end, when, like, John Proctor gets hanged in that movie, like, it's more of, like, because it was in the 90s that it came out. Mm-hmm. It's more of those, like,
96.
weird... 96. It was weird, like, those weird sound effects when you don't actually see them die, but
I remember watching this in school.
Yes. You don't-
That's when I saw it. The only time I've ever seen it was I was in 8th grade and we read The Crucible, and then after we read The Crucible, we watched the Crucible movie.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I almost fell asleep while I was watching it in class.
Well, it's like over
Yeah, not
2
one of my
hours.
favorites.
pretty
It's-
boring movie.
It's long. It's
Not one of
long.
my
This
favorites.
is your half? This should be like a quarter.
The one thing I do remember about this movie that I will say is definitely horror related are some of the ways that the people are killed in this movie.
Exactly.
And the one guy that I'm thinking of is the guy that's what they used to call being
Stoned.
pressed to
Yeah.
death. Which essentially they lay you down on the ground and they put stones on you until you are crushed.
Crush, yeah.
Which is
I mean,
a
why not?
horrifying way to go and
That was,
a very slow, painful death.
Oh, Miles, I forget his name.
I can tell you right now. I
But,
have this up. Hold on. Go ahead. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, it was a very dark chapter of New England.
Yeah.
So that's why I was kind of grouping it together with Hocus Pocus, because it's kind of like
Giles Corey.
Giles Corey, not Miles. Giles Corey. Yes, he was pressed to death.
Yikes.
But all of that actually happened. Like, that's kind of what makes it scary, is that actually happened. But
So I'm actually on the Wikipedia page of what the pressed to death execution was, and there's an illustration from 1868 of a man being pressed to death by an elephant.
yeah.
So horrible way to go.
So this isn't like impressed to death, like you're impressed.
no.
someone.
Oh, yeah.
Literally
Yes.
pressed.
No, I
pressed as in crushed.
Yeah.
Sounds
So that's
terrible.
why I feel like that can be a horror movie,
fair
kind
enough.
of like.
I feel like I'd rather
little-
it by way of the elephant because that would be quicker.
At least it'd be quicker. Yeah.
Right. It walks
As long as it wasn't
the line.
slowly, it was just
Pushing
like bang.
down,
and
yeah.
you're,
Yeah, all right.
done.
All right, so the Crucible and Hocus Pocus.
But I was gonna
a
say,
double dip for Catherine. Go ahead.
Actually, that was the only kind of movies that I had that were actually filmed, and I realized that after the fact. When I first said, like, I was like, oh no, I want them filmed and
Yeah.
based in New England, but no, the other ones were not actually filmed in New England, which is kind of disappointing.
So
But
your
that's okay.
two
All right,
half
fair enough.
pointers.
So my two halves count as
One.
one.
Okay, fair enough. So I could go with my favorite New England-based horror movie right now, but I'm going to save that for a category towards the end here. I'm going to go with a movie that we haven't actually talked about yet, which I think is probably the way that we all would like to go here, and I'm going to talk about The Conjuring, because The Conjuring is a phenomenal movie.
And we
it actually,
should talk about it sometime.
We are going to talk about The Conjuring at some point. We just haven't decided yet. I think it's on one of our lists, because we all came up with
it
a
is,
list of
yeah.
10 movies we wanted to cover this year, and some of them were doubles, but so we might get to them all, we might not. Conjuring, I feel like at the time that I saw The Conjuring, I remember all the reviews leading up to the release were saying that this was the scariest movie ever made since The Exorcist. And I thought, holy shit, like, this must be pretty goddamn scary. And I had read that it's not like the typical late 90s, early 2000s, early 2010s horror movies where gore is emphasized. This was basically old school scares for an R-rated movie that is not based around violence and sex and all kinds of gore.
Because
It's
it was
supposed to be
coming-
just, it's rated
Right.
R because it's scary as shit.
Not coming out of the torture porn
Correct.
genre.
Correct. So I actually saw this movie in theaters, as I'm sure you guys might have
Yes,
as well.
I did, yeah.
And I remember when I saw it leaving the theater, I was disappointed
I remember that too.
because I didn't
Yeah.
really think it was as scary as advertised. And like that's the problem with reviews, right? Is that people can tell you it's the best movie ever made, it's the best thing ever, and you see it and you're like, well, that didn't really live up to all the hype.
Well, because then you have
There's
too
no
much
accounting
hype,
for
yeah.
taste.
Right,
Either.
exactly.
Everyone
it
has a
depends.
different
so, like,
opinion.
and you gotta keep in mind too. The thing with reviews is that most movie reviewers, if you're not based on a horror website, most movie reviewers hate horror movies. They they think they're a lesser art form, which is bullshit. But The Conjuring was one of those movies that was well reviewed and also did well at the box office. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I'm like, what is wrong with me here? I didn't really love this movie a lot, and then I let it marinate for a few months and I watched it again. It's a great movie. It's really, really good.
That's the same way I felt about Insidious. Didn't like it at first, and then the more I watched it, I was
See,
like,
I-
this movie's creepy as
See,
fuck.
opposite
Like-
for me. I thought Insidious was
Oh, first
phenomenal
watch, I
the
was
first
like,
time I
"Woo!"
saw it. Yeah.
More
But-
so just for that last scare.
Yeah.
Because that
But-
really got me.
Yeah, but obviously, so the New England factor here with The Conjuring is that it takes place, the main story takes place in Rhode Island. What's the name of the town? I'll find it. Hold on. But it takes place in Rhode Island, and it's investigated by two well-known paranormal investigators, the Warrens, who were famous for, they came to fame for investigating the Amityville Horror House, which again, not New England, Northeast, because it takes place in Long Island.
Paris-
But basically, the story is that these two paranormal investigators that live in Connecticut, the Warrens, go to this farmhouse in Rhode Island.
Harrisville.
Harrisville, that's what it is. I almost said Barrington. I knew that wasn't right.
No.
So.
Oh, Barrington's
I almost
Harrisville.
said Smithfield.
Smithfield is also not right. Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Not even close.
So in The Conjuring, they're played by, respectively, Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson. Those are the two actors that play those characters. They get called to this farmhouse in Rhode Island, Harrisville, Rhode Island, where there's all sorts of... It's an old house, and there's all sorts of paranormal stuff happening. And it's really scary. Without being over-the-top violent. You don't really see a lot, but it's just very scary. And it's a movie that's meant to be really scary and just scare you in the traditional sense of, like, creeping you out. Like, you see some stuff. But, obviously this movie, launched Andrew, you're going to kill me here, and I know you hate this, but it launched a cinematic universe. It launched the Conjuring universe, which now has the Annabelle movies, now has The Nun, now has, they're spinning off into other sections here. There's a Conjuring 2.
Right.
There's a new Conjuring movie coming out this year called The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because that was actually on my list. And what is coming out? So when is it coming out?
So basically, I know it's supposed to come out at some point this year. But
because I was like 2021, I was like, does that mean tentatively on 2021?
No. So this is actually according to what I have up here in front of me, it's scheduled to come out in September of 2021.
Oh well, they have a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Actually, that's going to be pretty exciting though.
Yeah. So basically, from what you have about this one, Devil Made Me Do It reveals a chilling story of terror, murder, and unknown evil that shocked even experienced real-life paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. One of the most sensational cases from their files, it starts with a fight for the soul of a young boy, then takes them beyond anything they'd ever seen before to mark the first time in U.S. history that a murder suspect would claim demonic possession as a defense. So clearly they meant to, they're trying to establish this as a franchise, but I think the movie that started all, The Conjuring, which again takes place in Harrisville, Rhode Island, and Ed and Lorraine Warren themselves are from Connecticut, can't be overlooked for New England horror. It's one of the best, and it's a scary movie, and I would recommend you go watch all of it, because all of them, for the most part, are good. The Nun sucks. The first Annabelle movie smelled, but for the most part, other than that, they're all pretty goddamn good.
I saw an article recently, I think, that they sold their house in, 2019. Whoever keeps buying and reselling that house, is making a lot of money based on just the movie.
I completely forgot to mention this. So, in my prior career for some shithole company that I used to work for, who will remain nameless, I used to cover Rhode Island as part of my territory, and I used to drive through Harrisville frequently, and I often drove by the farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island.
Did you ever take a picture?
You can't get to it. You can't get anywhere close to it. It is gated. They have cameras. They have millions of signs saying, do not get out, do not take photos, do not do anything. I drove by. I wanted to really bad, but I was on work time, didn't want to get in trouble. But it has since been purchased by 2 paranormal investigators that are now, they now have it open for tours, so you can actually go and spend a night in the Conjuring house.
We should do that. Wait a minute.
Love to
do
do
that.
Would love to do that.
Year round you can do that?
I think so. Yeah, I'd have to double check that. Don't quote me on that, folks. If
you would do that.
But
you're scared of everything.
Yeah, The Conjuring.
I
think it'd be a tough sell for you to get in there. If it's a good idea in person now, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving along. Andrew, what's your second movie?
So I did go with the Stephen King. I went with The Dead Zone because that's the first Stephen King movie that I saw that I really, really liked. Yep. I thought they did a great job. It was Cronenberg did that, right?
Cronenberg with Christopher Walken and Martin Sheen, right?
Martin Sheen is the president.
Yep.
And it's just...
One could say it might have been a prediction of things to come for, certain elections.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Just a good movie. Well acted. Solid. They stuck with the story from what I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just... It wasn't overdone. It did have a TV-style movie feel to it.
Yeah.
Which is all right. But I thought it was really a good 80s movie. Good soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Great acting. Interesting story. Not really horror, but...
It is, but it isn't.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's a horror... I mean, it's horror when you think about, the grand scheme of things going on.
Of course.
But is it a horror movie?
So it's probably the most tame Cronenberg movie, if you've seen any of his other stuff, like Videodrome or The Brood or The Fly or whatever else. But there's still some pretty graphic violence in that movie. But it definitely the themes of it don't lend itself to as much horror as some of his other stuff.
It's almost
right? Any of those other
more
movies,
of a psychological thriller,
sure.
Seven,
but a very good one.
A very good one.
Yeah.
And I think it's up there as for me. And you know where it takes place?
Maine,
Castle Rock, New Hampshire.
Castle Rock, New Hampshire.
He's a school teacher there, apparently. I didn't know that.
Okay.
Found that out. So
have you seen The Dead Zone?
Linked.
No.
Okay, fair enough. It's
Ever
a movie
seen the show?
that we should watch. So I actually never watched the show with
Me
Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah.
Same what's his name? Anthony Michael Hall.
Yep.
Anthony Michael Hall from Breakfast Club.
Yes.
That's right. I remembered that show. It used to be on USA. I never watched it, though.
No,
that's a movie that you should watch. I don't blame you. It's a lesser-known Stephen King movie, so I don't begrudge you for not seeing it, so we should watch that.
I feel like I've heard of it, though.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Anything else in the dead zone? Great pick, by the way. Random.
Just watch it.
Obscure.
And also, I need to throw in a half pick to the
Go
dark
ahead, you
half.
can do it.
I don't know if that takes place in New England. I don't care if it does.
Very well
If
may.
you haven't seen that Stephen King movie, The Dark Half, you need to watch it. Timothy Hutton.
Timothy Hutton, yep.
It's a really good premise. It's a really cheesy movie, I feel like, but it's really good.
Another Stephen King and George A. Romero collaboration, by the way, The Dark Half.
See? Makes it even better.
Yeah, absolutely. Catherine, what do you got, girl?
My turn?
Your turn.
I'm going to go with The Haunting from 1999.
Are you sure about
Are you
that?
sure about that? Seems like
Yes.
you're whispering about it.
Am I supposed to answer in the form of a question? What is The Haunting from 1999?
Still
Okay.
sounds like you're asking a question.
So this is a movie that I saw in theaters as well.
Yes.
One of the first movies I saw in the Randolph Showcase Cinemas.
Really? Oh, okay.
Fun fact.
When it was
The Lux
newly
section?
built?
And to clarify, you're talking about the movie, right?
The movie, correct.
Okay.
With Owen Wilson and Liam Neeson and...
Neeson.
You can't say Neeson. You just can't say it. Liam Neeson's in it. Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yup.
Catherine
Owen Wilson.
Zeta-Jones.
And there's a few other people, I
Yeah,
think,
there's a
too.
few
I haven't
other
seen it
people.
in years, my God.
There's that annoying lady that's in, like, every Boston-based movie. I think she was in Mystic River with...
Laura Linney.
No, she's like the other... she's Tim Robbins' wife, I think.
That's, that's, fucking, what's her name? Marcia Gay Harden.
I'm pretty sure she's in that movie. Unless I'm thinking of someone completely different. But
I don't know all the actresses.
That's fine.
actors'
Go ahead with your
names.
thoughts on the movie, Catherine.
we'll figure out the rest.
So that's supposed to be filmed. It's actually, I found out it was filmed in California, which isn't super surprising. And it's based in the Berkshires.
Right,
In
in
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, yep.
Yeah. So it was taking place at the Crane Estate, and it's this big mansion, and they find out it's haunted. And I thought that when I saw this, I thought it was kind of spooky in 1999.
At the time, yeah, in 1999, I was 13.
Right.
You were 12, so...
I watched it, and I thought it was kind of scary.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was one of my favorite scary movies.
I remember
back then.
Owen Wilson gets decapitated in this movie, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
I think so.
Yes, he does.
But yeah, so I definitely remember seeing this movie in theaters, and I remember all these characters, and I haven't seen it. So actually, I would give this a rewatch, because I'm sure it's bad, but it's probably not as bad as I remember it being. And
No, it's not bad at all. I thought it was great.
I'm sure you did.
I
sure
like
you did.
Liam Neeson.
The only issue with this is that it has since been adapted into a better version of
Right.
it. Right.
Well, and now you have The Haunting of Hill House, which is awesome on Netflix. I mean, it's way better. But at the time when this first came out, I thought it was really good, and I would still watch it. And it's different. Like it's the same concept, but also The Haunting of Hill House was like episodes.
It's just missing Vincent Price.
It wasn't just one movie, so it was a lot
Price.
different. It could have done
Yeah,
it
the
did a lot of
original
different
version.
stuff.
The original version, featured Vincent Price, who's
Which you can't go wrong.
Macabre.
If you're going to do an Edgar Allan Poe story, you gotta have Vincent.
Well, he's not. This isn't an Edgar.
No, I know, but he does every one
Right.
of those.
This actually was based on a novel by Shirley Jackson.
Surely you just...
Yes, Shirley Jackson. The Haunting of Hill House, which was the name of the Netflix series.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah. I like that pick. I have to say, it was not anywhere even close to being on my radar, so I applaud you for that. Very nice. Even though it wasn't one of my personal favorites, I'm glad that you liked it.
I knew you were going to do a lot of the Stephen Kings and...
So actually, I wanted to steer away from King for the most part, but I will get my one Stephen King movie out of the way right now, because I didn't want to do all Stephen King. We could do a whole episode based on just Stephen King New England
Well,
Plays
most
tomorrow,
of
right?
Stephen King's movies are based in New England.
But the one,
Or not movies, books, whatever,
the one
stories.
Stephen King, and I'll mention a couple other ones in the honorable mentions at the end here, but the one that I feel like consistently gets overlooked time and time again, and Andrew, I know you'll have lots to say on this because we both had it on our list of movies that we want to talk about this year, and that's The Mist, which, in my opinion, is probably, after The Shining, the second or third best Stephen King movie adaptation ever made. And I don't even think it's even up for discussion. This is a phenomenal, phenomenal movie, and this was based on... I read this short story. I believe it is part of Night Shift, the short story collection, or it might be another one. Forgive me, King fans. Don't rip my head off. But it is a longer short story. It's about 150 pages. And I read this story, also a Lovecraftian style of horror, where essentially there's a town where it gets enveloped by this mist. It covers everything, and these creatures start coming out of the mist and killing people. These Lovecraftian creatures, these gigantic tentacled creatures. And it's all caused by this company that's based in the same town in Maine called the Arrowhead Project. It's a branch of the military that basically they're experimenting with interdimensional technology, and the theory is that they bring these creatures out of another dimension and they start attacking and killing people in the town.
Very similar to Stranger Things.
Very similar to Stranger Things, and actually, so this story, the Stephen King story, has gone on to inspire. Did you ever play the Half-Life games at all?
I know the games you're talking about, yeah.
The first Half-Life is phenomenal, and this was a direct inspiration for that, but yeah, Half-Life, Stranger Things, lots of other stuff, but The Mist, awesome story in the first place, and then Frank Darabont, who directed the first season and a half of The Walking Dead, and he also directed The Green Mile, the movie. He went and directed this adaptation of The Mist, which has Thomas Jane, who played the Punisher at one point.
He's so good in this.
Has Marsha Gay Harden, who I mentioned before,
again.
is the crazy religious lady, and Andrea from The Walking Dead's in it. She plays like the love interest, and it's basically these people trapped in a grocery store trying to escape this mist. Mm-hmm. Awesome monsters, awesome plot, and honestly, probably the darkest ending of any horror movie that I've seen in probably the last 20 years.
The ending of that movie is so fucked.
And to quote Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about that. Andrew, I will let you talk about it since I know you have a lot to say about this movie.
The end of that movie is what makes that movie.
Yeah. 100%.
That's the most horrific thing you could think of.
Yeah.
It's so good. And you got the monsters. And did you ever see the TV show, The Mist? I never watched it.
It was terrible.
Is it?
It was
awful.
awful.
I noticed that there was one
basically,
season,
so they removed the creature elements, and they essentially turned the mist, they made the mist like sentient. So it was just like taking over people and having them do its bidding, which is stupid and terrible. If I remember, I watched like the first 5 episodes of it, and I was like, "This is so terrible. I don't want to watch it anymore."
You gave up on it.
It was on Spike TV. How good could it have been?
Okay, well that makes sense.
Terrible.
Is that even still a thing?
No, now it's the Paramount Network.
Makes sense.
Yeah, part of Paramount Plus. # streaming service.
The Mist is great. It's got a couple characters from Storm of the Century in it. I think he's usually in those.
Similar type of Stephen King story.
The old guy.
Yeah.
That's
yep.
You know the guy. He's in both.
Yes.
He dies in both. He should die in both.
I know the guy you're talking about. His name is Jeffrey DeMunn, I believe. He's also been in The Walking Dead, so he's worked with Frank Darabont and a few different things.
It's very similar to that story, which I love that story.
Yeah.
This story's... We're talking movies, though, so... The Mist is a no-brainer. That's like a slam dunk.
Yeah.
It's easily better than The Dead Zone, but The Dead Zone's good, too.
Yeah, Jeffrey DeMunn is one of the characters in that, and he was also in The Green Mile, so he's been in a lot of Stephen King stuff.
I love The Green Mile.
Yeah, but he also played, Jesus, who did he play? What was the name of the guy?
He played Jesus?
He played, he was Dale in like the first few seasons of The
Walking
Dead.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
that guy.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, The Mist is a phenomenal movie, and I have a feeling we're going to cover it in an episode pretty soon. So,
It's like we watched that kind of recently, didn't we? I feel like I remember watching it.
The Mist?
Yeah.
No, I bet you've never seen that movie.
Oh, okay.
Andrew.
I think she saw, but she doesn't.
That means we're on to you, my friend.
I'll wait for the pushback, because it's not a horror movie. Similar to my Prisoner's pick, Shudder Island. That movie is so good.
That's not a horror movie.
I know, but I've been wanting to talk about Shudder Island. It has elements of horror.
It's not a horror movie,
There's psychological horror in it. Like, the guy's lost his mind. He doesn't realize what's going on. There's a lot of, there's some themes that I feel like they don't elaborate on. There's no gore. There's a lot of horror built into it for some reason. I don't know. I just feel like it's a psychological thriller. So it's not a horror, but...
Pardon us here with...
If I can talk about Hocus Pocus, you can talk about Shudder Island.
Yeah, that's an absolutely valid point. And pardon us for Otis chiming in here right now. He's being a brat. But, I would agree with Catherine there. I think that if she can talk about Hocus Pocus and the Crucible, you can talk about Shudder Island. And I think...
Filmed it all in Massachusetts. The whole movie was filmed in Massachusetts.
This is absolutely through and through a psychological thriller, and probably the closest thing you'll ever get to Martin Scorsese directing a horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget that he directed that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And then you go, oh, yeah, this is a Scorsese. And you're like, I feel like the movie doesn't get enough publicity or enough, doesn't get enough positive reaction towards it. Like, no one talks about this movie, I feel like. And it's a really good movie with a great twist ending, with great acting, great writing, great scenery, great music, great cinematography. It's perfect. Most of it was filmed...
Great cast.
Great... Mark
Phenomenal
Ruffalo, like,
cast.
DiCaprio's DiCaprio.
Ben
Kingsley's awesome.
Ben Kingsley. Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo, I love
John
Mark
Carroll Lynch, who plays the head prison guard, the guy that plays the killer in Zodiac, or one of the arguably one of the killers in Zodiac. He's phenomenal in everything that he's in. Michelle Williams. I forgot Michelle Williams in that. I forgot who the love interest was, but such a good movie. But that
scene, like, I assume everyone's seen this, but that scene where he realizes that his 3 kids are drowned in the lake by his wife, like, that's so to me, that's horror.
This definitely this plays more on real life horrors and the horror, I would say, essentially of mental illness, because the character has no idea what he's doing the entire time. You find out at the end. Spoiler alert. I mean, this movie's wicked old. You should have heard about it by now. But I think one of the scariest parts about this movie for me are the flashbacks that he has of when he was a soldier. These are World War I or World War II?
World War II.
And he sees all the bodies, like a flashback to him at Auschwitz. Yep. So it is World War II, obviously. But he sees all the bodies stacked up, like just corpses stacked up on top of each other. And he's just standing there, like, and it's snowing, like... Scorsese does a really good job there of, like, playing up the
psychological.
Jesus fucking Christ. The psychological thrills in that movie.
Well, sure. That flashback where he has the German lying on the ground trying to reach for his gun.
Yes.
And he's, like, steps on his hand.
Yep.
That's so good, too.
Yeah,
and you know where a lot of those flashbacks, all the World War II scenes were filmed?
Where's that?
Taunton.
Wow! I had no idea about that.
Yeah, Taunton, and then all the, like, lighthouse scenes and the water scenes was Nahant.
Okay. I would say I thought they filmed some of it, like, on Castle Island or around that area in the harbor of Boston.
Boston Harbor, yeah, but that's where they did majority of the filming for those. That was the lighthouse, but because they did it off a Hull, there was there's like an island. There's a couple islands out there. I thought that's where they filmed it, like off Boston Harbor, off Nantasket Beach.
Oh, like where George's Island is and stuff?
I think maybe that's... But didn't mention that, but I thought...
George's Island was the one that you always went to on field trips. Yes. And there was always the rumor of the ghost in the fort and all that stuff. Yeah. The lady in black or the lady in white. I remember those.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Lady in white.
Kat, what are your thoughts on Shudder Island?
Oh.
Do you remember? Like, you saw it, right?
I think I saw it.
So the only thing for me that sucked about this is this is a Dennis Lehane book, and if you read anything by Dennis Lehane, he wrote Mystic River, he wrote Gone Baby Gone, he wrote a bunch of other stuff.
Can I just say that I did buy a book once?
Yeah. And
I bought this book, Shudder Island, and I hadn't seen the movie yet, but I bought it because I had heard about the movie, and I read like 20 pages.
I read this book cover to cover in
all I can do.
A day.
It's a short little book too. I wish I could have put it all together.
And the way that it's written by Dennis Lehane is awesome. And unfortunately, the movie is the exact same as the book, so I knew every twist and turn going into it, which was the only disappointing thing.
Having not known that,
were you blown away?
Where would you have landed with that?
My mind was blown when I read it. Absolutely.
Yeah, what a great story. I was like, this. Like when I saw that movie. Like Kat said, which is funny that Inception came to your mind, I went, why does Inception get all this credit and this movie gets nothing? Like, this movie's, I think, better than Inception. I think Inception is way overblown because of the special effects. And it's a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream.
It's a good movie, though.
It's a great movie. This movie's better.
Okay.
Fuck that movie.
Okay, cool. Catherine, what do you got next?
Lake Placid.
Oh, I love me some Gator.
Wow, nice pick.
Yes.
So you mentioned you might be mentioning this movie.
Yes.
And I'm super happy that you did.
Yeah.
This also has a great cast, and it's an awesome, campy, B-style monster movie.
Yes.
I love this movie. Go ahead.
So it was set in Maine, and it was a 1999 movie. It came out in 1999. What I also didn't even do my research on before, I looked it up while we were talking. It wasn't filmed in Massachusetts or any. I know. I thought that all these that I picked were. I thought I read them when I was kind of looking them up, and I didn't take my notes on them, and I was totally wrong. So no, it was actually filmed in different lakes in British Columbia and Surrey, and it was also filmed in Vancouver.
So not even close.
So not even close to New England.
That's all right. But, sure, big Shudder Island, you would have been good.
My bad, but it was set in Maine. So One of the guys that's in this is an actor that I particularly like, is Bill Pullman.
He's great.
Who doesn't like Bill Pullman?
It's
like Bill Paxton.
I know.
Like
an alumni of UMass, Bill Pullman.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Yeah, he's awesome. But, it's an alligator on a lake, and it's kind of the traditional story of, like, things start happening, and they start looking into it, and, like, people get in these situations in the lake where they're kind of seeing little traces of the alligator that's in there and not, and whatever. It's, if you haven't seen Lake Placid, I mean, it's a pretty standard, what Mike said, B horror movie. Maybe C horror movie. I like it though. I think it's a nice little horror. I think it's a nice little horror movie.
For starters, to me, other than a great white shark, there's nothing more horrifying than a crocodile or an alligator.
Agreed.
Because they're dinosaurs, essentially. It'd be like a giant chicken chasing you with razor-sharp teeth. It'd be terrifying. The chickens terrify me. But crocodiles and alligators are horrific. No thanks. There's actually, you know what? There's a movie on Amazon right now where it's some B fucking horror movie that just came out. And it takes place on the coast of Africa in like a tourist section. Mm-hmm. And there's an alligator, like Jaws, eating everybody.
Oh, I feel like I know that movie. It's of the legendary crocodile that is like the huge one that they.
I don't know. No, but this is like a movie. It's not like a documentary. It's like a.
I know what the movie.
So this is based on. Yeah. That sounds scary. Did you ever see Crawl? That was a good movie.
I haven't seen that yet. I
don't
want
think
to. So the movie that you're thinking of, by the way, that you were thinking of, is a movie called Primeval that came out in 2007. It's based on
This is a brand new movie.
Oh, okay.
Brand new. Like, I think it's filmed in like a different language.
Well, there was a 2007 movie that came out called Primeval that was based on a legendary crocodile in Africa that's said to be almost 30 feet long.
It's like
and
Megalodon.
Is over 100 years old. That's name is Gustav. So that
really?
is that's
name is Gustav.
That's the lore behind that. Yes. Yeah. So Lake Placid's such a good movie. I'm so happy you brought that up.
Yeah.
Anytime I'm with Andrew. Any type of big crocodile or big alligator stuff, which is actually an 80s movie called Alligator that's also has animatronics and is pretty good. Scary movie.
Yeah,
it's an alligator that's in the sewers, but yeah, Lake Placid's obviously in a lake.
Nice little horror movie.
Yeah.
I liked it when I was younger. It was like scary then, it's scary now, and I mean, I don't really go camping, so for you to say campy, I couldn't really relate to that, but like, nowadays we kind of go and take Otis for like walks around Morton Pond all the time. Not saying there's alligators in there, but you never know what's in the water.
Yeah.
So like, I know there's like swans and there's a lot of birds and there's a lot of fish. I see little minnows, but I mean,
was that one?
Maybe
the
which one?
Stephen King Creepshow one.
Oh, The Raft.
The Raft.
The Raft. Yeah, that's a good one. So good. Very good segment.
Nothing to do with alligators, but just as scary.
All right, cool. Anything else on Lake Placid?
No, we're good.
All right, fair enough. So I'm gonna. I have a lot of other movies that I want to mention and talk about briefly, but some of them we've already covered, and I'm going to avoid more Stephen King stuff, and I'm going to avoid other movies that I think we're probably going to talk about in the future here. And one I'm going to throw out that's going to be completely random, which I didn't even know was based in New England until earlier when I started researching for this episode. It's the only Eli Roth horror movie that I like, and it's called Cabin Fever, which came out in 2002, I believe.
Was this a remake? This was a remake.
No, it was not. Actually, it was an original concept written by Eli Roth and his roommate from college. Yeah, Cabin Fever came out in 2002, and it's described as a horror comedy movie, which I think it's much more of a horror movie, but essentially, involves a group of college graduates who rent a cabin in the woods, which apparently takes place in New Hampshire. And they begin to fall victim to a flesh-eating virus. So if you've seen this movie, you'll probably remember the one that I'm talking about. But the inspiration for the film actually came from a real-life experience during a trip to Iceland where Eli Roth developed a skin infection, and he thought this might be a good idea to write into a horror movie about flesh-eating infections. But essentially, there's some sort of waterborne illness in this movie that the spring breakers drink or ingest or jump in or whatever, and it starts eating away all their flesh, and it's just super gory, like everything that Eli Roth is kind of known for, like super gory, lots of nudity, lots of sex, like kind of like very much a throwback to the 80s in terms of all those things. But I think it's the only movie of his that I actually enjoy. I feel like a lot of his other movies, I'm just like, nah, no thanks. But this one stars Ryder Strong, who prayed.
Boy Meets World.
Ryder Strong, who played Sean Hunter in Boy Meets World.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I loved him.
Yeah, and he's good in this. But it's an underrated movie from the early 2000s, I think, and kind of the first movie that put Eli Roth on the map. You guys have any thoughts on this?
I think it's a solid pick. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize this movie was filmed in Massachusetts. I also thought this movie was a remake. What movie am I thinking of? Or when they do remakes of Cabin Fever, this is the movie they're talking about. I think it's crazy to realize that there's a movie that was made in the 2000s that was an original concept. It's because there's only a few, I feel like. Saw. Mm-hmm. This. You know what's a really good movie with this remind me of? Because I feel like I've seen Cabin Fever and it was so long ago that I probably liked it. It's a good concept for a movie. But did you ever see The Ruins?
I love The Ruins.
Yeah,
I actually read The Ruins.
Similar to that, they get taken over.
Very similar.
It's
yeah,
kind of
very
cool.
kind of similar, except they're in Mexico and The Ruins, and this one's in New England. But
so that seems like a good concept. Yeah. I feel like I should watch this movie again.
Yeah.
But Cabin Fever went on to go have 2 sequels, including Cabin Fever 2 Spring Fever, and then Cabin Fever Patient Zero. And then it was actually remade in 2016, which I have not seen.
Yeah, that's crazy. Remaking a movie 13 years later.
Yeah. It's like...
When do we wait a minute?
Seems a little ridiculous.
Especially when it was a solid movie. Why you got to remake it?
But yeah, The Ruins also, by the way, great call, because that's a great movie and a great book. Yeah.
That is based off a book, like most movies.
Fair enough. All right, so that's what I got on Cabin Fever. You guys want to go for one more round here? You guys have other movies you want to talk about, or should we wrap it up? Should I just go for honorable mentions?
Yeah, I was just going to go for honorable mentions, because the other movie that I had we've already talked about in our podcast, and I don't want to
Okay, so here's what I
talk about.
here's what else I had down, and some of them we've already covered on the show. Some of them are a little bit more famous, and we want to give you some more obscure stuff here. But obviously, I think the most famous horror movie, or probably the most famous Massachusetts movie of all time, is Jaws. Right? Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Honestly.
Filmed in Massachusetts, based in Massachusetts. What else can we really say about Jaws that we didn't say in our July episode that came out last year?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's like a no-brainer. If we're not going to do a podcast and talk about Jaws, we've already done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So we've said enough.
Agreed.
I mean, if you listen to that episode, you know how much I love Jaws, how much it means to me personally. It's a great movie. So if you haven't seen Jaws, I don't know what the fuck you're doing with your life. Go see Jaws. Also, I feel like the first time that really... So Stephen King, we obviously mentioned Stephen King. Lots of movies came out in the 80s, and they were of terrible quality, most of them at least. Some of them came out in the 90s, were a little bit better quality, like Shawshank Redemption, like The Green Mile, other stuff. But I feel like it was about time for Stephen King to have one of his most epic books of all time adapted into a multi-part epic movie series. And I feel like they did that with It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2.
Or It Chapter, the TV series that was the best ever.
Yeah, okay.
Because,
you knew this
I guess if you're going to...
duh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way scarier.
Sure. No,
absolutely.
I disagree. But I feel like the It movies were one of the first times they actually took a Stephen King book and said, okay, how do we adapt this for an audience in the when did it come out? 2019, 2018, the first one. How do we adapt this for a 2018 audience? And how do we spread this sprawling, huge, cosmic story out over multiple movies? 2017, right? First one was 2017, and the second one was 2019, right?
Yeah,
Chapter
that sounds
2,
right?
Yeah. So how do we do this for a modern audience? And I feel like they really struck that chord and turned it into a really scary, really good, faithful adaptation for the most part of Stephen King's book, It.
Now,
the part where everyone's kids, right?
Yeah.
And then, obviously, there's a second part, which I know we will probably all digress on this, because I have certain opinions, you guys have certain opinions. You were going to say. Sorry.
We've already said about it.
The first part is so much better.
Wait, we already...
And that's because it was... I don't know. I just feel like it was just generally better. I enjoyed the acting.
It was a little bit more stripped down,
children.
a little bit less weird. I get all of it. I understand why most people probably like the first one better. I'm a huge fan of the second one. I won't go into detail on it, but I like them both. I think they're both very good adaptations of a novel by Stephen King that is borderline unadaptable in most parts.
Yeah.
And, there's certain parts, obviously certain parts of the book, but even they went there in part 2, the opening scene with the severe, disturbing beating of the gay character. I forget his name. I can't remember everything, guys. Sorry, my brain is only so big. But, that stuff's fucked up. So I just think they did a really good job with both movies. Obviously, the first part, most people think is stronger, but I'm a huge fan of the second part as well. And Kat's a huge fan of the original miniseries, which I guarantee
it was a movie.
Does not hold up
which
as well.
Which is a miniseries and doesn't count.
Right. In addition to the It movies, I also had on my list here, not really a horror movie, but if we're going to talk about Hocus Pocus, we're going to talk about Beetlejuice.
Hell yeah.
Beetlejuice
Absolutely.
takes place in Connecticut, and I think Beetlejuice might be one of those movies that was a gateway horror movie for a lot of kids. There's some freaky Tim Burton imagery in this.
Absolutely.
Not a straight-out horror movie, but there's some weird shit.
There's a
creepy
phenomenal
shit.
Michael Keaton in this, too.
Absolutely. I mean, he's
so
the best part of it.
What's her face?
Winona Ryder.
Yes, but also...
what's her name from Schitt's Creek? Catherine O'Hara.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Oh my god, I love her.
Yeah, she's great. She essentially plays another version of
Moira from
Moira.
Schitt's Creek.
Yeah, from Schitt's Creek in this movie. It's the same character.
Kevin!
Yeah, so
And,
Beetlejuice takes place in Connecticut, and this is a movie also, the next one here, that we will probably talk about in the future. And I know, I think you also had it on your list, so you've definitely seen it. You might not remember it, but Session 9 is a huge Massachusetts-based horror movie that was also filmed in Massachusetts. It was actually filmed at Danvers State Hospital, which is condemned.
I read about this,
And it's about 3 guys that are, essentially, they're assigned to clean up asbestos in this old
Never
facility.
seen this.
It's really, really
No,
good.
Is it on Netflix? Is that on Netflix?
It was on Netflix for a long time. I don't think it is anymore. But
that's
it's
a
really creepy and really good. So we'll cover that for sure. The Witch is a movie that we already covered on an episode.
Correct.
So we'll just skip that one because you can hear all of our thoughts on The Witch by going back and listening to our Witch episode. The last 2 that I had here, 2 that, are older movies that are a little bit more obscure. You probably have seen, if you're a fan of 80s horror, you've seen Reanimator, which is also
I
an
was going to
H.P.
bring that up as
Lovecraft movie.
Yeah, that movie's great.
Yeah, great movie.
I should read
Jeffrey
some
Combs,
Lovecraft.
Barbara Crampton, awesome movie for sure. And then also another one that I didn't realize took place in New England, but this is very much a movie that's a precursor to movies like Get Out and Jordan Peele's sensibility towards horror, and that would be The Stepford Wives. It takes place in Connecticut. Did you guys ever see The Stepford Wives?
With Nicole Kidman? No.
No,
No.
that's a remake. The original
the original.
Stepford.
Oh, that's.
yeah,
I
came
was
out in
thinking
the
the
70s.
same thing.
I
you were.
didn't
I
know-
was like,
I've never seen
I was
either.
like, wait
Yeah.
a minute, this is a horror movie? I was like,
So picture a horror
Stepford
movie.
Wives? I was like-
Picture Get Out, but with like 1950s esque housewives.
Oh, it's
Right.
this old?
in this gated weird community where all of the wives are these weird. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So fill in the blanks there.
so. What are we thinking about here then?
The remake.
Like,
The remake. Nicole Kidman's in a remake of that movie. That was Nicole Kidman and Matthew
That was a
Broderick.
horror movie?
Yes.
I've
The
never
original
seen
one.
that.
The
I've never
original one
seen
was
that
like
one. I just knew who was in
a
it.
satirical horror movie.
I don't think I ever put that together, that it was ever a horror
Well, again,
movie.
if we're considering Hocus Pocus and Beetlejuice and the Crucible horror movies, we're considering the Stepford Wives a horror movie.
Okay.
For the sake of this podcast. So, but yeah, I think that's what I have tonight, you guys, for New England-based horror movies. Do you guys have any final thoughts? Andrew, Kat, anyone?
That's pretty much all I got. I'm
No.
spent.
I know, I thought this was kind of fun, though. This
It was
a nice
interesting.
little-
It led to a lot
nice
different
little
conversation than I
categories.
expected.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
Well, this has been another episode of America's Hometown Horror, folks, and thanks for tuning in to another episode. As always, if you'd like to hear more from us, because we do post frequently on all sorts of social media networks, here's where you can find us. YouTube and Facebook, just search for America's Hometown Horror. You'll find all of our episodes on there, as well as other sorts of posts on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter, @Hometown Horror. You can also tag us in photos on Instagram, @Hometown Horror Pod. And you can also drop us a line at hometownhorrorpodcast@gmail.com, which we've actually seen a little bit of a ramp up in emails coming in, which is fantastic.
wait. You're telling me people are emailing us?
A little bit,
Yeah.
sometimes.
That's like a...
We're getting a couple
We've
emails.
only been asking, we've never even talked about it anymore. Now, finally, people are like, oh, hey,
know.
we'll email them.
I know.
What is this, the 21st century?
Well, I think
Jesus.
you've been asking people to email.
No, I know we have, and I just thought it was a joke. I didn't think people were actually going to email us.
Well,
Well-
they did, and it's nice.
Well, hey, it turns out you can also subscribe to our show on pretty much anywhere that you get your podcasts, but more specifically on Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, and wherever else you may listen to your podcasts. My name is Mike. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of America's Hometown Horror. I'm joined by Andrew and Kat. Say goodbye to your listener.
Good
Adios,
evening.
muchachos.
Bye. Hey everyone, it's Mike from America's Hometown Horror, and just wanted to say thank you again for listening to another episode of our show, because of course, we would be nothing without you listeners. If you are interested in more local Plymouth podcasts, I would highly recommend you check out some shows by our cohorts on the Inebriart Podcast Network. That's right, the Inebriart Podcast Network, folks. In addition to America's Hometown Horror, you can find the Inebriart Podcast, Bar Talk, Theme Park Legends, Retro Redoctopus, and Old Colony Cast. Head on over and give them a listen.